So my name is Justin Orso. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Scose. Before I tell you what Scose is, I want to talk to you a little bit about my background. So I spent the last decade working in suppliers, like many of you out there, working as an analyst, a trade marketer, demand planner, account manager. So I've done about every single role you can think of in a CPG environment. And during that time, I really realized that there was a lot of problems out there that we faced with the services that we worked with the brands we were trying to launch. But it didn't matter if I was working at a small supplier to being in a large supplier, that we needed to focus on innovation and new launches and new ways of doing business. So I think you're going to hear some of that. In the last 5 years, the ways of utilizing crowds and big data out there, you probably hear that word a lot, is really important for us to really think about and to try to drive that business. So what does Scose do? Well, we're a business that's focused around random crowds. So today you're going to hear about random crowds and predefined crowds. But we focus on connecting what matters with who matters and utilizing our technology to connect customers directly to brands and retailers and allowing those brands and retailers to communicate back with those customers. So when you start thinking about innovative ways to communicate with your customers out there, whether it's through marketing pieces or whether it's through FAQs and trying to get feedback from your customers, we probably have a solution for you. So that's going to segue us into the power of crowds and into this discussion. So we've got 3 people we're going to bring up here. So the first person I'd like to welcome back to the stage would be Rick. So you're no longer emceeing. Now you're going to be a panelist. So welcome to the stage. And we'll get introductions from him in just a second. But obviously, Rick's the CEO and co-founder at Field Agent. The next person we're going to bring to the stage is Abby Kiefer, who is the CEO and co-founder at Red Clay Design. And she comes all the way from San Francisco. Okay. But she's an Arkansas alum, so we welcome back with open arms. And the last person on our panel today is Kyle Circle, and he is the co-founder at Pollinate Media Group. So let's welcome all to the stage here.
My name is Rick West. I'm one of the co-founders at Field Agent, and the premise behind what we do from a crowd standpoint is that we have about 800,000 folks that have downloaded our app all around the world. And we can use mobile technology, that mobile device in someone's hand, to capture data inside of someone's home or retail location. So its simplest premise for us is we do mobile research. And research could be specific data or actually the question of why. And so as you think about products and services that you have today, and you're trying to figure out what people think about those specific items inside of a store or what they think about them inside of a home, we can actually harness that data, get it back to you. And as you look at providing insights back into your organization, that's really what we do day in and day out.
Hey y'all, I'm Abby, one of the co-founders at Red Clay. And Red Clay really is a marketplace for product and packaging design. So we help folks, everybody from kind of the maker in their garage. Linda, when you were doing the toddy development and things like that, we've helped folks that small all the way up to literally some of the biggest retail brands that you know about develop products and do it better and ideally faster than they've ever done it before. So we have a community of about 500 hand-vetted industrial and packaging designers available on our website. We match you. You come to the site. You explain what product it is that you're trying to design or packaging idea that you have or need, and then we connect you to a small part of our crowd. And then we have a tool for you to move through and iterate on that idea and ultimately deliver technical drawings that you can take to your manufacturer. And our goal really is to find the right folks for you to work with and then do it quickly. So our standard project takes about 8 weeks so that you can go from that kind of big idea to market as fast as possible.
Awesome. Kyle Circle, Pollinate Media Group, and we believe a brand is no longer what a marketer tells us it is, it's what people tell each other it is. And so we've curated a community of 4,000 influencers, both female, male, and multicultural. We actually have 2 companies. Pollinate's 3.5 years old, which is exclusively top female publishers. And We've Made Media is multicultural, military, Canada, and men and dads. So more emerging verticals. And we work across a lot of retail-specific work as well as online work.
So thank you for the introductions. And I want to take us back to 2004 there's a book called Wisdom of Crowds. You've probably seen it out there. It's written by James Surowiecki. And he talked a lot about, at that time, the power of crowds, the wisdom of crowds, and it was a novel idea kind of back then. And today it's taken more light into the big data and the research and using those crowds. But one of the things that he did in that book was he tells this tale about being at a fair and the crowd in the fair actually gathering together to provide the weight of an ox, right? And we hear many stories about here of Bert and Victoria going out into the parking lot and gathering information from a crowd out there or getting data. But what you're doing is actually using a broader scale of gathering that data. So tell us about how you're actually leveraging the crowd in your business today to empower the suppliers out here. And can we use the mics here?
Can we use these?
Yeah.
Why don't you start first? You're good? Okay.
Oh, there we go.
From a distance.
Go ahead. You got it.
Ping pong.
Kyle,
The question one more time.
tell us about how you're leveraging the crowd in your business today to help suppliers like many in the room here.
Yep. So a lot of challenges go into working with social media and influencers. The communication aspect, there's the average communication with a digital influencer is 27 emails. And so as marketers have recognized from a cost perspective that they could target the timing and how many and the target audience that they wanted to target, we could do it very effectively, and we could minimize that transaction time as that matchmaker. And so from a technology standpoint, we're really a tech company at its core. My background is in technology, and my wife has been a top lifestyle blogger since 2007. And so that was kind of our incubation of being a lifetime entrepreneur, culminating with her skill set and recognizing the challenges she was having working with brands and working with agencies. And so we're able to work on small scale as well as a large scale, no matter the startup that it might be. We started with Cost Plus World Market and The Honest Company, and worked pretty heavy in home decor. And this was per when Honest Company was just focusing on online, nothing to do with brick and mortar. So it's interesting to kind of see how things have evolved over the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think our whole goal at Red Clay and really harnessing the crowd is we follow the design community a ton, right? So there's about 2 million designers who have listed profiles on Behance, which is essentially the LinkedIn for designers. And they're all over the world right now, and they are either working as a freelancer, maybe some of them are involved in an agency, they're housed maybe at one of the big companies, but it's kind of a needle in a haystack experience to find one another and for them to find work that they really want to work on. And so similar to Kyle, we are a tech play. We're a place where that matchmaking can happen in a much more efficient way. But our real goal is to how do you curate the crowd, make that 2 million people, boil it down to the right, say 3 to 5 people to work on a particular project in a really simple way. And how can we leverage technology to do that in order to, and then again, really our big mission is to get those right 3 to 5 people to match to the right brand who has a product need, and then how do they work together even faster. And so we always talk about using and leveraging a curated crowd in order to make it a really efficient experience for both sides, that crowd and then the brand who's needing a particular product or packaging.
Justin, in our world, we have much more breadth that would bring it much tighter after the fact. So think of your core demographic today. If you wanted to find, regardless of your product or service, if you wanted to get access to that core demographic, are you going to call them on their landline? No. Are you going to send them a survey in the mail with a dollar bill and say, fill out the survey? Are you going to go to the mall and stand in the mall and say, hey, would you answer? Probably not. So we've taken that little thing that most of you are using right now, which means you're tweeting stuff about this, that handheld technology, and said, listen, it's on our person at all times, and there's a much better chance for us to get you to respond to something on your phone than traditional methods as little as 4 or 5 years ago. Most of the people in this room, you probably don't have landlines today. So how do you make that happen? So we start out with a very, very broad, pocket and say, yes, we have hundreds of thousands of people, but the question becomes, if I want 18 to 25-year-old millennial women that use CoverGirl that are in these 5 states, how do I find them? Well, not only can we find them for you, I can talk to them in a couple of hours. So it's that type of breadth that we have and speed, but it's all the providing a solution via technology, and that's really the premise behind of our breadth.
Okay, so I want to take this one step further and actually think about it from a product side. So a product that I saw in the marketplace a couple of years ago, probably 5 years ago, on Sky Mall magazine. So flying, working in the supplier community, you spend tons of time at airports, in the air, flying, and Sky Mall magazine was, of course, the selfie stick, right? And I was on a road trip a couple weeks ago out in California at the Grand Canyon, and noticed it seemed like a lot of people had selfie sticks. This is something I never thought would actually take off, right? I just looked before we got up here. It's in Walmart. It's $9.99. So if I'm out there looking to launch a new product, it's something that I'm not really sure about the marketplace, and I predetermined your order up here because I thought maybe 1, 2, 3 is maybe how we could go about launching a product. Tell us how we would use your services to actually go about to launch that product.
Yeah, well, we'll start out, in our case, you're going to start very, very broad. And you're going to try to understand kind of the nuances and what people think around that product. You're not necessarily worried about every single specific detail. You're trying to understand the concept. Does the concept have legs? You want to do that before you really get into any type of manufacturing conversations about details and what it's going to look like. Because again, you're trying to figure out, is this just a really cool idea that I've got? Or does it have legs? Do I have some premise to say, yes, it's time for me to invest? Once I take that, then I would pass it along to
us. Yeah, no, exactly. And so it's going great. It's not just me with one idea. Now it's, there's probably 10 to 50,000 people who instantly already gravitate to what it is that I'm working on. And then you're able to take some of that feedback that, maybe it's a back of the napkin sketch that you have that you are showing people, or some words that kind of describe what it is that you were getting feedback on. It's, a selfie stick that extends versus a selfie stick that has a remote, or whatever that may be. Take that kind of qualifier, that description, come to Red Clay, put it into a creative brief. Again, be matched to folks who have designed tech products before in the past, folks who have been designed consumer packaged goods products in the past, who have a particular bent around photography, whatever it is, to match to that right team. And then those designers are going to throw back at you anywhere between 5 and 50 different concepts, and you're able to say, okay, of those concepts, which ones do we like? I would actually say at that point, we could toss it to Kyle's team.
We would probably go back and forth 2 or 3 times.
Exactly, yep.
Take the 50 down to 10, down to 2 or 3. Now we've got those 2 or 3. They're really, really tight.
Exactly. And so then the designer that is designing those 2 or 3 is going to be able to create full technical specs for you, that there's someone missing here, and that would be someone who could do the manufacturing and the prototyping. I think there's someone in the audience here, Rapid, who could really help and be a part of that, and then be able to move forward with the prototyping.
Perfect. We believe that the facts tell and stories sell. So from the aspect of a product getting on store shelves and really needing kind of that ignition strategy, whether it's a new product with a large CPG or a new startup that's come off of a show like Shark Tank or has done a Kickstarter, it doesn't matter if it's online or brick and mortar, they recognize the power of influencers, both socially and on blogs. And so we vet from 20 different metrics. We've been through 100,000 applications over 3.5 years to narrow down the 4,000 that we have today, who are very targeted around retail-specific abilities to shop at that retailer and purchase and live in that marketplace, whether it's a lifestyle blog, a home decor, fashion, beauty. We do a lot outside CPG, financial services, automotive. And so we're narrowing down who's the best fit to showcase amplifying that brand's message around creating content. And it's kind of this mini Oprah effect that these audiences and tribes have a trusted audience. And if we can target those trusted audiences with something that's going to live forever and that kind of takes the conversation back to the fence, it has a lot of sustainable power to drive the sale.
Okay, that's great. So thinking back to when I was working for suppliers and managing brands, one of the things that we had trouble kind of managing was actually all the change in technology. There was so many new things out there, new services, new big data companies, new e-commerce platforms, things that we didn't know anything about. And all of you are managing tech companies focused around enhancing that supplier relationship and growing their sales. How do you think that, or what do you think the long-term implications are of this fast-changing technology and even specific things to such as wearables? So the Apple Watch, how is that going to change the way you go to market, the way you do business in the future?
All right, so it impacts us a little bit, as you can imagine. I mean, we literally launched this pre-selfie. All right, remember, 2009 iPhone 3S, it was the rage. You could actually do video. So we spent most of our time showing our clients how to, because they were all BlackBerry users. They had no clue. There's like, and then you've got a couple of 23-year-olds like, oh, please call on me. And they're in the back of the room. They're like, I have 2 phones, BlackBerry and this one. They're like, this is so cool. And you talk through that, right? Well, think what I'm faced with today. 2 years ago, everyone here was expected to be wearing Google glasses. Everyone. You're going to be wearing Google glasses because it's going to, everyone, right? You have to be careful with technology. Now, everyone here should have their Apple Watch on, right? Everyone here should have a car that, so the whole concept of technology coming in, we as researchers, we as providers, can't ignore it, but we have to assess it and really try to understand when adoption is going to happen. And there's that classic tipping point, right? You've read enough books about tipping points and where it comes in. So we played with Google Glass, and we're playing with the Apple Watch to make sure we're relevant. But when the tipping point happens, we have to be able to make sure we're in that stage that we can actually launch and still be relevant for our clients.
I'm going to take it a little bit of a different direction, because to build on that is one of the beauties of what I think all of us do here is it's no longer a big SaaS software as a service tool that only enterprises of 100,000 people and more can actually access, and instead being able to plug into any one of our services can be done in a really agile kind of iterative way where it's like try it and test it. This doesn't have to be, I know from our experience, again, the whole process takes at most 8 weeks. It can take as little as 20 hours of somebody's time to run a full project, and we've had people run projects typically somewhere between, their first project is between $5,000 and $7,000. So it's not like it's this big, like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this big budget, I'm gonna have to dedicate all this time, I need to spend a whole person. It's something that literally the person in their garage can take advantage of and try, and then all the way up to some of the big guys who are saying, like, maybe I need to expand my bandwidth on this, maybe it's on the marketing side, maybe it's on the product development side. And these new tools are doing that more and more. I mean, there's a CRM, a customer relation management software called Pipedrive that is probably going to take a decent size out of Salesforce's market share because they charge $9 a month. Like, everybody can afford $9 a month, even a tiny little startup.
Salespeople, everyone wrote that down. It was amazing how quickly they wrote that.
And so it's little things like that technology can be so much more helpful on, and be so much more nimble. So I would say that's one thing. And then secondly, on the wearables and Internet of Things ideas, because those tools are becoming so much more affordable, you can go through our cycle in a matter of weeks, and for a budget of less than $20,000. Like, so many more people can do this, and so it can be this much more democratized experience of, I have a great idea, and I don't have to. I'm not saying it's going to be an overnight success, but overnight success no longer has to be maybe 30 years, and instead it can be shrunk down to 30 months, which is certainly an interesting and much more viable proposition for so many more of us sitting in this room, which I think is awfully cool.
Abby, I'd actually like to elaborate on that a little bit more. You and I were talking earlier about using the crowd for the design purposes. So when we think about that, having worked in a medium-sized to a large-sized company, we had internal designers and marketers and people to handle that. And I know Rick and P&G, you had those there as well. So we had all of those services. But a challenge is a lot more input can be a lot greater output
Totally.
when you take something to market. So how would you talk to maybe people out here that maybe even work for a medium-sized supplier and tell them that crowdsourcing design, marketing efforts can be of great service to them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think where we sit today is we're seeing an evolving state. We're seeing a place where big brands who have a bunch of like a stable of designers, either in-house physically or through an agency that they have a very strong relationship with, are leveraging Red Clay mostly for early concepting. So they're doing exactly what Rick was saying. They're like, hey, we have this idea. Either it's a blue sky innovation idea where this is our core business, but we see the future's going there. We don't know exactly what there is, so we want to go play around out there. But our core team is supporting our core business. And so how can we leverage other things without it being a huge financial risk and a time risk for us? And they'll leverage Red Clay to come play with that. They'll post this blue sky brief and get the ideas of 10 different people who are out of the box. They think very differently than that stable of folks in the house. And so they leverage us oftentimes that way. And it's a 2 to 3 week engagement. It's a couple $1,000. Again, it doesn't have to be this big, oh my God, now I have to, justify breaking away core resources. So that's definitely one way we see it working. And then the other way that's really interesting is watching how these medium-sized folks are responding to these little guys who are leveraging services like all of ours in a really nimble fashion and going, uh-oh, maybe holding on to all of this staff isn't the best way to go about it, or how do we act and leverage services and technology like Red Clay to make our core team even more productive and more nimble, and allow them to do that, because if they're starting to recognize if we don't start doing that in some way, shape, or form, these little guys are going to there's going to be a lot more of them a lot faster. That are going to take a lot bigger chunk of what we're doing. And so how do you use tools like Red Clay to make you more nimble and get your teams churning in a lot more fashion? So we've had experience both doing blue sky stuff with the bigger firms as well as getting their teams internally to be more productive.